What did you actually think? One team I was actually semi-surprised by, Dom, because I was very down on him before the split. I actually thought Mad Lions looked a tiny bit better than I thought they were going to, mate. With the context that I do still think that bot lane is an absolute war crime / abomination that was ever even created. Like, the joke is Hylissang. Hylissang just doesn't care, mate. He's still on that bullshit. He's still on that. Lulu game was so egregious. Like,
I don't
the
give him a
sad thing
pass anymore.
Here's the sad thing, Dom. I don't actually, in any context, hate Hylissang. I don't just like his personality. I even love, like, when he was at his peak, like you're saying, the old Hylissang used to be fucking great. I could even totally accept, like, look, I'll accept the ints for those genius players, or, you know, like that famous game where he did the fucking, like, split push pike in the playoffs. Like, stuff like that makes it like, look, I'll pay the price of admission. I'm with you. I don't pay the price of admission anymore, mate. This is actually embarrassing. Like, this guy is, for real, he is one of the all-time great European players, but what a shit fucking last year and a half this will be if it keeps going like this. This is whack.
It's been about a year, because I feel like in spring, he was actually really good last year. I mean, he was MVP candidate in spring, but playoffs was not good, and I just feel like he can't play Enchanters. It just seems like he just does not have the ability to play Enchanters. And we've been in an Enchanter meta for a while now, so I don't know. I mean, his Enchanters are even
worse, dude. Let's be real. The worst thing about him as well is this. I've always said this. I used to say this back in the day when he used to int all those games on Nautilus. It's not even that you int. It's that you the worst crime, in my opinion, for a player like him is where you do the thing, and he's the worst for it. You play a champion, and you can tell by the way he plays it, dude. He plays it like it. Like, the joke is he does play Lulu like it's Rakan. He thinks his job is to go in the center of everyone and do a knock-up. It's like, but you're not on that champion. So the thing that makes it most egregious, in my opinion, is it's like, if you're going to be bad, at least just try not to win. Just make that your main goal. He still tries to win the game. You know what I mean? Like, but he can't. And as a result, like, I was making this point on Something Insight. Like, the joke is he must have the most overrated vision in his mind of how important, like, fucking Flash Polymorph is. He thinks landing that is the greatest combo in League of Legends. he's so horny to go for it every time. That's why I said it's like when he used to play those Nautilus games like 3 years ago. The guy would be going in like he was on Pike. You're like, bro, there's not even a play to be made here. What are we doing?
Yeah, it was pretty absurd. I mean, the game versus Vitality, he literally has flash, heal, ulti in the mid lane fight, the one where Bo stops Elyoya blind that everyone was jerking off over. In that fight, he gets one shot by Perks again, and he doesn't use any of his abilities. Like, I don't know where his keyboard is. He doesn't use any of his abilities. And then the bot lane situation, he walks up into his ear, gets one shot, doesn't use a spell, and then he respawns and does the same thing again. It's like, at some point, you got to take responsibility for just inting. Like, do you just have no concept of how tanky you are? I mean, the weird thing is that it just happened to him. Sometimes damage could be surprising in the game. You get one shot by something, you're like, what the fuck? What just one shot me? But how does it happen twice within like a 30-second window? Like, it just seems so weird, especially in the context of when he was chasing. He's just in front of his whole team chasing Vitality out of the base as Lulu, like he's gonna somehow catch them. It just makes no sense. It's so weird.
And I'll even put this out there because I think this is a good angle to take. Bearing in mind, remember, Dom, everyone's going to forget this detail. Even though I think it was wrong, last split they gave the Mad Lions coaching staff of the split. Like, I think it should have been Misfits like we discussed on the show, but whatever. For some reason, the media just went with the narrative like, I've heard Mac and them are good. Like, it's like, that's a fucking just a Reddit narrative. Look, he is, but you just took a classic narrative. That would be like not watching the play and just going, I assume Reckless was the best ADC. Yeah, you probably write more splits, but maybe watch the games. The problem I have is this, Dom. This split should show how great they are as a fucking coaching staff. If they can turn Kazi and Hylissang around and make this lineup work, I'll give it up to them. Maybe they are fucking gods of coaching, because the problem I have is this. I actually worry that Hylissang will be just as bad as this the whole time, because the one downside I see to their coaching staff, this is why I think they work best with rookies, is they don't seem like a much of a disciplinarian type of a staff, if you know what I mean. They don't seem like the kind of staff that's going to tell you, like, essentially like the harsh truth, like you fucked up. Like you're saying, they would never give the speech you just gave. Like, you take responsibility, you fucked up, you cost them the game, what do you do? I don't think they would do that. So I do worry. I hope they don't take too soft a touch with him, because I think that's a problem you have to get on now, dude. Like I was saying before about like the format and stuff, like, sure, you went 2-1, so you're probably going to make next phase, but if this team wants any chance of being like a relevant team, they've got to fix that issue. You can't just have this guy go 0-7 on Lulu. What?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem that they have is they feel as a coaching staff, or just from talking to them as people, that they don't want to like detract from the strengths of the player by, honing in on their weaknesses. They don't want to be like, don't like Hylissang, don't go for anything ever, and then he just ends up being like a bot in the bot lane. You know, he's just AFK the entire game. So they're really careful with how they approach it, but I just don't know what the correct solution is. Like, are they going to go through all the phases of trying to figure out how you end up winning with Hylissang? Are you going to be the team that just completely ignores like what the meta is, and it's like, okay, we'll give them Yuumi and we'll just play to dive them, get Hylissang on like Nautilus or Leona, and he's just going to go in over and over again? What is going to be their angle to make their team good versus these other teams? Maybe they're a team that just has to ban like Nami Yuumi every single game. They just ban Nami Yuumi and they just don't give them a good Lulu situation. Potentially even ban that 4-5 and just play the game out like that. Maybe that has to be the angle. I'm not sure, but I just wonder if they'll actually go through all the phases or if they'll keep on trying to play the meta just because it's the meta. Are they going to go Lucian Nami every single time it's up? Are they going to go like, I mean, if they go Yuumi Zarya, I just can't see them making it through that lane phase. If Reckless wasn't able to make it through that lane phase versus a top team like G2, how are Carzzy and Hilly going to be safe and not die? I just don't believe it.
Yeah, so the thing to me is this. I will say, though, I actually think, as mad as it sounds, if you are Mac and the guys at Mad Lions, the Hylissang problem is like a good problem to have. Because you know when we were having that discussion last year, Dom, about like, is this really the time you finally cut Hylissang from Fnatic? Because we talked about, you know, in the past, yeah, he would have like time. I wouldn't even say he had whole splits. He just had weeks where he did in past years. This was the first time he truly just like fucked a whole split up. But at the same time, the big problem obviously is if you kick him, your nightmare is what if it's like some mad fucking Thresh meta next split and he's just the best again. So of all the teams, if you look in LEC, Mad Lions actually is the team that should have gambled on him. They lost Kaiser, so they're not getting a player as good as that coming in. Like, unless they'd have gone with the Targamas move or something, which he was already going to XL apparently. If you look at the teams out there, actually, Hylissang is worth a gamble if you're Mad Lions. It's not a bad pickup for them. If somehow they did get it fixed, they'd have a piece that's way better than they should have. I don't hate it as a pickup, even though I do think it's somewhat doomed.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, you got to go for some.
I don't hate it either. It's just like the pairing is the most.
The pairing's the worst.
Pairing
yeah, that's the one I don't get. Here's the thing, dude. Like, I didn't know Reckless or the Rooks guy wouldn't have great synergy. This one doesn't even look like on paper it should work for any reason, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you tell that to anyone. Like, if you were to just play some little games in last summer and you were just to do an imaginary exercise where you're pairing players together, this would be like the most extreme int version of a pairing you could ever have, no matter what. Like, you could look at any of the players in the league at that time. There's not a more int pairing you could ever have than Carzzy Hylissang.
And I'll just say it again. Look, it's sort of a rhetorical thing I say, guys. I do actually know why. Like, as Dom says, I've talked to Mac and people from Mad Lions. I've talked to teammates of his. I do know why people value Carzzy. I'll rephrase it. Here's the problem. It's not that I don't know what they see in Carzzy, Dom. I just don't believe them. Is that a good way to phrase it? Like, because they've all told me all that shit. Like, oh, it's calm, it's good attitude. Like, he actually does know what to do in like the middle of it. I just don't believe it. That's it. And I'll throw this in as well. You're an ADC, brother. You've got to actually be able to do well in lane. That's half your game. That is half your game. Like,
yeah, I mean, they kind of had some good lanes. They had a good lane versus.
They were all right.
I guess
They were all right. No, that one was pretty decent actually.
Before they started completely inting, right? I mean, to be honest, that game. I mean, we're talking about bot lane because that's an interesting point. Like, Niski just played a fucking bad game. I don't think there's anything more to say than that for mid lane. But in bot lane, the number one, the drafting is weird. You don't take Lucian over the Nami. You take the Nami because Nami can actually lane with other champions, and if you take Lucian doesn't have a good pairing outside of Nami. So that was weird. But the fact that they were able to play the Lucian Lulu and actually have pressure bot lane, and they got themselves into an advantageous position, they solo killed the bot lane. They actually would have went 2-0 if they didn't get dragged into the mid lane fight that was occurring the same way. So that was okay. That was a better lane than I expected. It's just like, it's not good enough. Like, even if you have aggressive players and you're able to get a couple kills in lane, if you then int like 7 fights in a row, who the fuck cares? Like, lane is only a small portion of the game. And sure, you can make the argument that it's the most important portion, but even if it is the most important portion, once you die once, all that work that you did instantly goes away. I mean, you know how it is to play a solo queue game. If you play a solo queue game, you're like 3-0, you got a 600 gold shutdown on you, 600 gold total, 300 gold shutdown, and you die once in the game, you instantly feel, you're like, oh shit, that guy's even with me.
Yeah.
And then if you're not able to get that lead back in the mid or late game, that's it. Like, you've just thrown your lead, and now you're just going to be behind for the rest of the game. I just don't see them being able to keep their leads even when they get the leads.
Yes. By the way, just as an aside, that's easily the way I would just describe why I think Carzzy's just an inappropriate player for a top team. He doesn't fill the fundamental qualities of his role, even if he has strengths elsewhere. Now you're just on some like Clear Love back in the day was fine as a fucking farming jungler because his team won the team fight. Like now you're not talking about the role anymore. You just talk about how you fix a problem where you've got a problem, but he has a strength somewhere else. It's like in this scenario, I'd rather just. The joke is, I would take a Reckless any day over a Kazi. Like he might have flaws, but they don't kill my whole game. They just don't let me win as many games. That's the difference. Kazi might throw the whole game for me. Also, like I said, I just don't get why they're in love with him. I don't. Again, he also has nothing wrong with his personality. He seems totally fine. But why are they in love with that guy's game? He's just fucking all right. He's all right.
Yeah, he's all right. I mean, I guess the issue here is like if you're Mad Lions and you're looking just at where your team matches up, like who would you get if you assume that the top 5 teams have already signed their players? Who would you get over Carzzy? I don't think there's anyone that I would rather have from one of these like bottom tier teams besides from maybe Crownie. I think Crownie is the one person that you can throw in there that's like, oh, that's probably more stable.
Let me just check some of this. So I'll run through the ADCs who were available for you.
So like, let's assume that like Comp isn't going anywhere. Han Sama is already like got him locked up. Patrick is already staying on XL. Koi has Comp, whatever, right? So everyone has their AD carries that are above you. And then left you have Jack Spectra coming in. You have X, and I don't even know if Jack Spectra was potentially up for contract because he was in Heretics Academy, so he might be on a contract where if they promote him, then other teams can't negotiate because some contracts work like that. And you have the ability to sign between Crownie, you have Jack Spectra, you have Exakick, and then you have Kabi. I guess Kabi is the only one that you could say, but even that, I mean, like Kabi, I feel like is limited upside. So I can understand the Carzzy pick in the context of the 80 carries that were left.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.